Hey, this is Monkey and this is How I DJ. I guess I got into music like through radio. It was through Pirate and through like specialist shows on Radio 1. That's how I first started to hear specialist music in my own time when I was like a teenager. So when I heard like broadcasters play dance music and not commercial music in the daytime, I was like, this is sick. I was at like a local station in South London called Radio Jackie, which is like a radio station for like over 40s. And like weirdly enough, they knew the guys from Rinse FM, which at the time was still Pirate. They got me in touch with those guys, ended up interning there. I think I was like the first intern they'd ever had. And then I ended up working in the office and I was doing things like checking all the equipment in the studio. It was when Katy B started to get really big and when like Scream and Benga became like big sort of like dubstep stars. And I was just a kid in the office, just like getting cups of tea, getting Nando's, checking the equipment, putting podcasts together. And then through that, eventually I got offered a show basically. They were like, look, someone's can't come in tomorrow, do you want to cover them? And it was like on a Thursday morning. And I ended up keeping the slot and then sort of progressed from there. With radio actually and with DJing, I think like one of the key, most standard things is try not to mix vocals on top of each other. If you're like completely vetted in like how to using CDJs, I'm honestly not going to show anything that's going to blow your mind because I actually keep it really simple. But at the same time, for me, keeping it simple makes me flow a lot better. So in the past, I went on tour with like a drum machine as well as like 4 CDJs, and it was actually really, really fun and a lot different. But I actually just really enjoy just like 4 CDJs in a mixer. So yeah, like I said, come in with a track that's already got a vocal or a bit of a vocal, so it doesn't have a heavy one. And then quite often I will loop 16 or 32 bars that are a bit into the next tune because I feel like the drums get a lot more interesting and that way I can switch around a lot quicker. And then what I'll quite often do as well if there's like a vocal is I'll actually use this filter to filter out the top ends and the mid ends and I'll just use the bass line, and that's like quite a good way to like mix in 2 records together that have both got vocals. Baseline of this record in and the rest of this tune in, then you can just switch the basses like when and as you please. And then obviously when I progressed to Radio 1, it was a completely different kettle of fish. You know, very, very clean, very like high tech, lots of going on. Links were different. How you built a show was very different. You pre-mixed things. I might have a mix at the end of the show if it's like a 2-hour show, but you know, the first hour was like pre-done on Ableton and stuff like that. And it actually put me through through broadcasting lessons, like how to start and end links, because you'd often get given something to say, but I would never know like when to finish the sentence or even like how to start it, sort of thing, because you know, links weren't actually necessary on Rinse. You know, it was like big up someone or this track was or that track is or whatever. But when you're given a big bit of paper and it's like an advert almost for like Radio 1 Big Weekend or something, it's a lot to get in like 30 seconds or 20 seconds, or they say, can you talk over this 1 minute seg and just like cover it up and have a little chat about what you're up to this weekend and stuff. That was all very new for me. So I think at first I got very much caught up in trying to say things exactly what they were like on the paper. And then eventually I relaxed and got a bit more confident in myself and was like, you know what, these people hired me to like be myself. So take those little points, take the key points that need to be put across and just say it how you would say it, even if you don't typically sound like a very perfect presenter, do you know what I mean? I do use tools quite a lot. Some of them may be vocal, some of them may be like instrumental drums. I tend to use the more instrumental drums ones, but tools are sort of stripped back, like either percussion or just like an acapella. You can use a tool as an acapella. They can often be a segue from one track to another. The two tracks might be really, really busy and you need something more simple to stitch those two together. Or they might be a case of, like, if it's an acapella, it might be just something you want to dip in and out of. So you could be having two decks, mixing two records together, and then you would drop in like a classic. So you would just like loop this. I've got it on a pre-loop already, which is like my hot cue. And I'd have this running as well with the other two records, and I might just like bring it in, everyone's like woo, and then sort of fade it back out again. Or it's quite a good way to sort of tease people. Say if you've got the tool of that record and then you have the original as well, if you can't get a clean loop on the original, you can use the tool to like tease people and then bring in the original record, maybe like a tune later or two tunes later. So here, the riff line of this bass line doesn't actually go very well with this tool. So here I might just use the hi-hats on this record. With like cutting and stuff, and what I do sometimes, what you just saw, was I'll stick an echo on the tool of the melody that's happening with body language on the left deck, and I'll like, when I bring down this record, I'll quickly like flick it on just for like a bit of variation and to like cut it up a bit. My first set was for Annie Mac at Coco in Camden, so thrown into the deep end again. I think I sent her like a 20-minute mix after work one time, and we'd been going back and forth for a couple of years, like grabbing coffees and stuff. She was really good to me when I was younger. I didn't get put on the bill. I was like warming the room up for when people walked in. And this is early, like I'm talking like 10 PM, like no one was there sort of thing. And it was the first time I played on a big sound system, and like playing in your bedroom in comparison to playing on a massive sound system on a huge stage, like elevated, sort of 6 foot above everyone else, is a completely different scenario. It just like completely like took my breath away. I was like, I feel like I can't even hear. That first time I had a bit of A4 paper like in front of me, and it had like the set that I was gonna play, you know, the first time I played, rather than reading the crowd or whatever. Now it's very much, I have record box, I have certain boxes, you know, like genres like house, classic house, techno, disco, and then after that I also do things in months, weirdly. So I have boxes like January, February, March, April, May. Because music moves so quickly now, there's always so much like new music. It helps me organise it if I know sort of what month I found it in or what month it came out in. At the BBC, my show was 2 hours. Everyone had a 3-hour show at one point actually, but the majority of the time it was 2 hours. And the first, it changed over the years, but the first sort of like 30 minutes to an hour were always pre-mixed on Ableton. So I would collate the records together with my producer as well. He helped, a guy called Matt Healy, who produces Pete Tong's show now. Like, he's actually a six selector. Like, when you work in the radio, you actually work very much like in a team. And producers like super key. If you've got a producer that's on point, you've caught a vibe with, and has like the same sort of taste as you, like that can elevate your show massively. So me and him would like send tunes back and forth to each other. He would send me stuff, I'd send him stuff. I'd get his opinion on stuff even sometimes. And then I would collect all the records myself and then go on Ableton, and I would mix the first sort of like 45 minutes to an hour together. For those that don't use Ableton, when you look at the screen, it's like 2 channels, almost like a visual representation of what I'm doing here, I guess. And it's just like 1 track, 2nd track, 3rd track, 4th track. And you can do things like exactly what you do on the mixer, take EQs out, put them in, take the bass out, take the mids out, take the highs out. Essentially, it's basically exactly what you're doing here, but just on a computer software. And then I'd also would have to make rooms for like segues. So there might be a record that is got loads of vocal going into a record that's another record that's got loads of vocal. So what I'd do is I would chop up an instrumental part of that record or the second record, and I would just loop them, and then it would give me say 30 seconds to do a link between each record, and then I'd have to mark that on a bit of paper. So like I said, very regimented in comparison to doing like Rinse back in the day. So once I did that hour, in the second hour I actually just got on the decks, which was really nice, and there was a lot less talking, so it was all sort of just like about the music and the live mixing essentially. I felt like I was playing an integral part into giving new producers like quite a big stage to play their music on, and there was very much a pressure to be playing new music all the time. Now I'm with Defected, like I really like the balance, because sometimes when I was on national radio I was like, you know what, I really just want to play this old B-side from like the 90s just because it's a good record, but there was always an element of like new music. But with Defected they do it really well, where it's like very much new music, like the newest music you can get, especially on their labels, and then also like throwback records that are still extremely relevant today and that clearly still play a very strong part in today's scene. And I think that's really, one, really special, and 2, like really important. Like I don't think people should just forget about the old records. And I think it is definitely nice to be able to be in that position where you can play a record at a club or play a record on the radio of some kid from like wherever who's made it in his bedroom and they're completely gassed about the situation. Like that's actually really, really nice, you know.